Hey guys, what is up, and I welcome each and every one of you to a new League of Legends video. It is that time once again to take a look at the biggest changes coming to the next patch that'll be out on the live servers in just a couple of days. There's quite a bit of information to go over, including some major skins coming out and even new features to League of Legends as a whole. So if you end up enjoying this video and you want me to continue doing it every 2 weeks for every new patch that's coming out, then simply hit that like button to let me know. But let's get this party underway. So the very first thing I actually want to talk about is going to be the two new huge skins coming out to League of Legends. We have Nightbringer Yasuo and Dawnbringer Riven. These two skins, which I have a gameplay of both of them, which I recommend checking out, are absolutely fantastic. I mean, they look absolutely just gorgeous, and there's almost no reason not to want to buy them if you at least play these champions to a certain extent. I felt honestly amazing playing them in the game, and they look great. The artwork looks just fantastic as well, and just Riot, I think, honestly did a tremendous job at them. But the reason I want to bring them up first in this video is because it kind of brings me into the next point that I want to talk about, which is also going to be the new feature coming to League of Legends, and that's going to be the new missions feature. Now, missions are essentially going to be just mini quests, or I guess missions that you can do that will be displayed on your League of Legends client, such as win X games with X champions, or do these small things within games in general, which will also give you rewards and just loot in general, just as kind of an extra thing that you can do throughout League of Legends rather than just playing the game for the sake of playing. It is a really neat addition, but the reason that's cool is the fact that they're also bringing in specific features with this new missions feature that are also related to Nightbringer and Dawnbringer, Yasuo, and Riven. As you can see in these screenshots, there's a bunch of things that you can do and accomplishments that you can achieve by playing these skins in certain aspects or in certain ways to further unlock bonus features and icons and things like that. So it's going to be a really cool thing, and this should be coming out with this patch because I'm almost positive that these two skins will be coming out with this patch in a couple of days. So this is definitely something to look forward to, and I think it's going to add a nice little extra layer onto League of Legends just to make it that much more enjoyable. And in case you're unaware, the new missions feature will also be giving you awesome rewards, such as even maybe skins and even something like free gemstones, which you obviously collect to unlock the better skins like Hextech, Annie, or the new Vayne and Darius skins that are also only unlocked through the Hextech crafting system. But with that out of the way, let's talk about actual buffs and nerfs that are coming to the champions within the next patch. And to start things off, we're gonna have Camille. Camille is a top laner that has been pretty much out of the meta, at least a little bit, compared to how she was before. Pretty much almost picked or banned in the top lane. And I mean, there have been several reasons for that, because she did receive several nerfs in a row. But it does seem like Riot is going to be trying to slowly put her back into the meta by giving her a slight buff, where now the second part of her Q that deals the true damage, it now deals 100% bonus damage rather than just 80. Now, this isn't obviously the biggest thing in the entire world, but this is a percent scaling, so it is going to overall just increase as you level and as you get more items, and the noticeable difference will just gradually get more and more. So I feel like as the game progresses, the 20% difference will start becoming more and more useful, but at the end of the day, I mean, it's not going to just completely make her OP, but I feel like it'll definitely put her in a spot where picking her won't actually be detrimental to your team. Following this, we also have some changes happening to Corki, which I would assume is a buff, but I'm not 100% sure either because they're a little bit weird. So the first two are very basic and simple. The base attack has been increased and the base attack speed has also been increased, but here's the part that gets a little bit crazy. So currently, Corki's passive splits his auto attacks into 50% magical and 50% AD damage, right? It's a nice little split, makes it hard to itemize against Corki, and it's pretty damn useful. But it seems like now the passive instead will actually convert 75% of his basic attacks into magic damage, while the rest of the 25, I'm assuming, will go straight to AD. So this obviously means that Corki now is going to be much more magical based of a champion. I mean, he's going to have a lot more magical damage than AD damage. He's not necessarily even going to be that much more of an AD type or AD carry type champion. So maybe this is a buff to mid lane Corki, maybe it's not. I'm not entirely sure, and I'm not really 100% confident in how it's going to work out, but it is an interesting change, and I'm curious if this will actually make a big impact on the champion. But let's move along down the list, because there's a nerf happening to Riven, a jungler that has just been notorious and obnoxious for several patches in a row, to where Riot has tried to nerf him down to absolutely just zero success. Well, maybe this one will be the cherry on the cake, because now his E ability, which is a very strong ability, especially when combined with Daisy, has had its damage reduced. Now, only 10 at rank 1, but by the time you rank it up to rank 5, you actually lose 50 base damage on the ability, which is actually a decent amount. I mean, again, is this enough to just completely nuke Riven and bring him out of the meta? It's closer, it's definitely closer, and it's definitely a better nerf than the previous one, but I still don't think it's going to be enough, and he'll still be a pretty good jungler. Maybe not the best, maybe not the second best, but probably still third. Following this, we also have some changes and I guess an overall buff to Jhin. Now, Jhin is also another ADC champion that has been pretty much non-existent. I mean, let's be honest, you don't really see too many Jins, and when you do, it's not often that he is placed to success. There's just so many better ADC options, but regardless, the changes to Jhin and I guess buff is as follows. Now, the first thing is going to be a little bit awkward because the base damage on his Q has actually been lowered by 5 at every single rank. But to make up for this, the AD ratio on the Q ability has actually been increased by 10% at every single rank. So yeah, it'll kind of suck a little bit more in the laning phase, but it'll very quickly turn into a favorable outcome as you start scaling up, especially with Jhin having just insane flat AD stats, which will obviously work tremendously well with any AD ratio type abilities. Following this, there's a slight buff to his ultimate where the damage on it has actually been increased by 10 rank 1, 15 rank 2, and 20 rank 3. Now, don't really know if this will change anything, and I feel like for the most part, it'll still be more or less the same thing. I mean, I don't think it'll be anything noticeable, but I guess a buff is still a buff. Will this bring Jhin back into the meta? Maybe not. Probably not. I mean, he'll probably be a little bit stronger, but definitely still not a top 3 or top 4 ADC. Next on the list, we also have a nerf happening to Karma. Now, Karma support has been pretty damn strong, actually. A lot of shield supports are very meta at the moment, like Lulu, Karma, Janna even. Very, very good. So Karma getting the nerf and hopefully bringing her down a couple of notches. The amount that her E ability, the shield, is just, I guess, shielding someone has just been lowered as you rank it up. And if you also match her shield, the R plus E combo, percent of original shield for nearby allies has been lowered from 50% to 30%. So it definitely seems like Riot is understanding the current support meta, again, just being very popular with shielding type champions and bringing Karma down a couple of notches, which will naturally make other shielding supports slightly stronger. Next up, we have a buff happening to Kindred. Now, ever since the Kindred rework, apparently it just wasn't as successful as I thought it would be, and as I feel like a lot of people thought it would be as well. They didn't really find their place to shine, and they're still getting essentially just out-jungled by other jungle champions. So the buff to them is as follows. The base attack has actually been increased by 3, which is not too bad actually. Wolf's Frenzy, the W, the dash speed has been increased by 200. Wolf's Frenzy's zone duration has been slightly increased when using long-range casts to compensate for Wolf's travel time, and the E ability, Mounting Dread, the mana cost has been lowered from 70 to 50 at all ranks. I don't personally play enough Kindred to actually understand if this is a big enough buff. I mean, if this is going to be enough to make Kindred just actually strong and really truly back into the meta and be considered a top 3 jungler, maybe top 4 jungler, because honestly, the way the meta works, if you're playing a jungle champion that's anything lower than maybe the top 4, then you're probably just really kind of making it more difficult for your team for no reason. Is this enough for Kindred? I honestly do not know, so only time will tell. But next up, we have some nerfs happening to Malzahar. Now, Malzahar mid lane, ever since his rework, has actually taken off, and he's considered to be among the best mid laners at the moment, especially when you look at the win rates, sitting at the top of the charts by quite a bit. So the nerf to him is as follows. The damage on the Q ability has just been flat out lowered, especially as you rank it up, only by 20 by rank 5, but I mean, it's still going to be a nerf regardless. And his ultimate, Nether Grasp, has actually had his damage overall lowered as well. Now, the base damage has been lowered, the AP ratio has been also lowered, so it seems like his overall damage is just not going to be as high anymore, and his win rate will definitely drop, but I don't feel like it'll drop too much. I mean, it'll probably put him down to a spot, maybe within the top 5 mid laners. I mean, he'll still be pretty strong, and he still provides exactly what he does at the moment, just very, very slightly weaker. Now, much like Kindred, Rek'Sai's rework also apparently did not be too favorable for her either, so the buff is going to be as follows. The base attack damage has been increased, the armor growth has been increased, the unburrowed W bonus damage has been increased to 80% from 40, and her ultimate just kind of works a little bit better. Following this, we also have what I would argue is a buff to Rumble, where now he's just simply stronger against champions, but weaker when it comes to pushing in waves and just CSing. Because the base damage on his Q has actually been increased by a decent amount, so it's just flat out better at the earlier ranks. The ratio has been increased as well, the cooldown has been nerfed, and the damage to minions has actually been lowered. But I feel like when you actually all-in someone, it'll be more damage overall. His shield has also been increased with how much it's actually shielding, which is also really good. And the damage on his E ability has also been increased as well, to which I feel like you'd max E first and then Q. And the final thing I want to talk about that's regarding champions is going to be a nerf to Zac, arguably the strongest jungler at the very moment. Now, he's definitely deserving one, and the nerfs are as follows. Unstable Matter, his W, the damage has been flat out lowered, not by a lot, but still something. And his Elastic Slingshot, the damage has also been lowered by 20 at every single rank. Now, I feel like this is actually a pretty bad nerf. They're making the same mistake they did with Ivern. Maybe they're just testing the grounds and not trying to over nerf, but this will still not make Zac the weakest jungler. He'll still be the strongest by a decent margin. So I don't know, I feel like his Q is probably the biggest offender in his kit. It's really, really strong and it can do so damn much, and I feel like that's what they should be nerfing instead. Now, before I end off the video, there's a few changes I want to talk about regarding items. The first of which being Doran's Ring. The passive on this item is now unique. followed by that Dorn Shield now costs you 450 gold, which obviously means you only get 1 potion with it now rather than 2. There's also the rework happening to Zeke's or Zeki's or whatever you want to call it, which I made a video talking about, which now just gives you this really cool AoE effect which slows people down. You combine it with an ally and then it just does bonus damage for yourself and the ally as well. And there's also a bunch of really small changes happening to several items that aren't really worth talking about because again there are pretty small changes, nothing just completely major like a rework or something just huge. So if you want to check that out, I'll have a link to it down below to the Surrender at 20 website and you can quickly have a look through yourself. But either way guys, that is about it for this video. There you have it, some huge changes coming to the next patch. We have the release of the sexy skins, we have the new cool missions feature which will be a lot of fun to play around with and accomplish the achievements and get the rewards, and a bunch of changes and buffs and nerfs and all that good stuff coming as well. So if you enjoyed the video, hit it with that like button to show your support, share this with your friends, subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you guys for the next video. Peace.
I don't know what to do.